Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show England special after that great game against Denmark. As ever, I'm Ali. I'm joined by my regular co-host, Sarah, and we promised you a special guest, and boy, have we delivered. We have got David Gough with us today, who, amongst his many accolades, was the assistant coach with England during the time when they got their bronze medal over in Canada in 2015. Welcome, David.
Ali, Sarah, thank you very much. Excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. I love that Ali kicked it off by describing the England game as a great game.
Well, it was up until 40 minutes.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being on. Everybody listening, we are going to get into the England game, but we've got some football royalty, I suppose, here. So we've got to get into your resume and what you've done first.
So as I alluded in my intro, you were the assistant coach with England during the 2015 World Cup. You did that for a couple of years. Yeah. I have to ask, winning that bronze medal, what was the feeling like when Farah's goal went in? Oh. Like, obviously, you'd had the heartbreak from Laura Bassett in the semi, to that adulation of Farah.
Yeah, it was probably one of the, I think anybody involved at the time with the group would tell you that kind of 48-hour period between the two games. And for some reason, there was only 2 days. Usually you had kind of 72 hours, but for some reason, there was only 2 days between the two games. And the roller coaster of emotions that everybody went through, obviously culminating in unbelievable success. And I'll say this, Laura was fantastic throughout the entire tournament. Lead up to the tournament, she earned that spot at centre back. She was absolutely brilliant, and everybody in the squad came together at that time. And I think that was, why we went out and did what we did against Germany. But yeah, there's not been many penalties in my life. There's been a few, but there's not been many like that. I wanted to go in more. I got to be honest.
All right, now I have to ask, because there's a fun connection to the U.S. as well. You were the assistant coach to Vlatko Andonovski at FC Kansas City before they moved to Utah. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
How many years were you working with Vlatko?
Only one, but I had a fantastic year there. I met a wonderful man called Matt Briggs, who was the academy director. Superb football brain, wonderful man. And he introduced me to Vlatko. And I was working in college soccer at the time. And the way that the NWSL works with the college season, the start of the season is pretty laid back. Because obviously the fall is when college is. 2017, I joined FCKC in their final year of existence. And I'm thinking that's it. I'm there. I'm with Vlatko in the league. And then they sold the franchise to Utah, and that was the end of that. So
that was the end of that. You were like, I'm not moving to Utah?
Yeah, well, no, it was a wonderful season. The fans there, the way the game was in 2017, there was still this kind of love and unbelievable fandom, but it hadn't quite jumped into the professional era it's in now. So there was still, still very close to the fans. You still kind of knew them, you spoke to them, and it was a wonderful experience. We had players like Alex Rodriguez, even though unfortunately she got injured early on in the season. We had Sydney Leroux, Nicole Barnhart, Shea Groom was coming through. It was a phenomenal experience, and I loved every minute of it. Yeah.
Amazing. When we hit pause on this, I'm going to ask for any behind the scenes Sydney Leroux, because I'm such a fangirl of her Instagram. I think if I could follow one person, it would be Sydney Leroux. She is too funny.
We just had Cassius, her son, and she was, she's trying to balance mum, and she's trying to, play. And obviously she's still in the international setup, coming back from that. And sometimes you kind of just look at people and think it's unbelievable what, human beings can achieve, in their professional and personal life. And it's just, it's inspiring. So yeah, she was great.
Speaking of inspiring, your next assistant coach job was over with Jamaica, with the Reggae Girls, who we absolutely love on this podcast. So how did that differ from like the England setup to, I know you did it during COVID, but being with the Reggae Girls for 2 years?
Yeah, I'm curious, like within the federation and everything, the differences between them, because that's obviously a lot. And then if there's any difference between how you coach just the players, how the players are, how they move, how they interact, how they handle themselves.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, straight away on the federation side of things, there's obviously a huge difference between the JFF and the FA, understandably. And I think really, though, people who've been in women's football for a long time will resonate with this, that, you do need to fight at times. We for a long time, we need to fight to get a seat at the table, for anyone to listen, anyone to watch. And sometimes it was a struggle with the JFF just to get, basic things like we'd turn up at a hotel and the rooms hadn't been booked for 40 people, or we'd go to a training ground and the gates would be locked. So there's obviously that doesn't happen, in UEFA nations, or certainly with England, it didn't happen. But yeah, those are the kinds of problems we kind of face. But Sadella Marley, who is Bob Marley's daughter, is the biggest ambassador for the Jamaican team, and she is driving the standard straight through. She's right there with the team, and she's funding a lot of their preparations and stuff, and she has done for a long time. And really, that's why it works. And just amazing woman, amazing foundation. Obviously, huge soccer lovers. The Marley family is huge. Soccer was huge for them, and what they're doing for young Jamaican girls and boys all around the world is phenomenal. So, yeah, on the organization side, it was night and day. But the players themselves, the professionalism is there. Their drive to want to be the best is exactly the same. Extremely proud both nations to play. For their country. I've been very privileged to sit and listen to some top players talk about their kind of ultimate motivation and why they started, and often with these players, how they started, because women's football wasn't around at the young ages. They all played on boys' teams. They all went through some really tough times doing that. And it's humbling, to think of the barriers they've knocked out the way to get where they are. So both fantastic experiences, both very, very different. Obviously, the highest highs with England, and then I think Canada beat us 9-0 in Olympic qualifying during that time while we were there in Texas one time. So that was, that to see where the Reggae Girls are now and the journey they've been on as well is phenomenal. So two very different experiences, but unbelievable, both of them, yeah.
I mean, I know the answer to this question, but I've got to ask, because it sounds like you've got a special place in your heart for Jamaica.
I do.
Let's say in this, parallel universe, England and Jamaica find each other. They face each other in this World Cup.
Yeah.
Who are you going for?
Yeah, I'm going for the Reggae Girls. I'm not going to lie. So,
that's not what I thought you were going to say.
I'll tell you for why. Because I'm Welsh.
I was going to say, Sarah doesn't get the intricacies of the home nation.
Listen, I understand basic geography and history, okay?
As proud as I am to have represented England, and I was. So to represent England and wear the England badge and be there is unbelievable. But during my time with the Reggae Girls, I'll actually share this with you. There's
I'm so excited.
There's a phrase in Jamaica. It's called taliwa, and it translates loosely to hard work, grit, determination. And I tried to coin it one day in a team meeting and just got laughed out of the room by the entire squad. And ever since, I was the valley boy from Wales who said taliwa. So that tells you all about the group. And yeah, look, when they got the draw against France, I was jumping up and down a little bit, to be fair. So love both nations, wish them both the best. But it would be great to see Jamaica go on and do well, wouldn't it? Yeah.
We'll have to have you back on if that happens to talk Jamaica. We're here to talk about England, but before we get onto the game, we've done a lot of your history. What are you up to now?
Well, now since 2017, I've been running a company called theproplayer.com. which is basically I suppose what we do is kind of help aspiring players with their game through video analysis and kind of individual player development plans. And it started out with the professional players that I'd worked with in my career. As you kind of, soccer is very transitional. As you move on from teams and nations, you make connections, but you go on to your next job or whatever it is. So I've continued to work with some of those players. I've been very fortunate to work with some of those players in the Super League still, the NWSL. We've got a couple of players at the tournament now, obviously out in Australia. But all that work is kind of, confidential and it's all completely free for professional players. And we end up working with a lot of players who get injured. Sometimes they get a big injury. They can't be on the field. They want to continue to develop off the field. So we do a lot of work with those players. And in 2019, I opened it up to youth players and tried to help as many youth players as I could around the world. And they kind of send us in video and we give them, we analyze their games, give them feedback and, kind of help them talk about the things they do well. We're not so much talking about what you can't do. We're trying to talk about what you can do and how you can be great at what you do. And it's worked really well. And obviously when the pandemic, when people couldn't go out onto the fields, they could still do this kind of work. So it kicked on again. So yes, it's quite successful, and we've been running it 5 years now. Yeah,
I'm looking at it now, and like Sarah will be very jealous because one of the recommendations on your website is from one Casey Stoney, who is like Sarah's
long lost love.
Oh, unbelievable!
What a brilliant soccer mind she is, though.
130 odd caps and just one of the best leaders I've ever been fortunate to be around. And Casey was she'd already played so many games and done so much stuff when I got to the England team, but she did so much behind the scenes to help younger players come through. And just, again, we talk about real football royalty, Casey Stoney, and even now the great job she's doing in the NWSL. Very, very lucky to be in and around these people for sure.
So you're not surprised that she went to coaching?
No, I'm not. She was a captain for a long time. We would sit for hours discussing our game plan, our tactics, and she always wanted to know why this, why not that, and you could always see she was going to be a fantastic leader and a great coach. And to start Manchester United and do that job, that's probably the pinnacle for most of us. And then to leave that, go across the world and start another franchise in San Diego is. Hats off to her. That's that's trailblazing.
Okay, we've put it off long enough. We have to talk about the England-Denmark game, and of course, we have to start with what happened with Keira Walsh.
Of course,
just a moment of silence.
I mean, moment of silence for that. I mean, heartbreaking in and of itself. I think compounded by everything else. To use a British phrase, absolutely gutting. England still get the win. They still pull out the 3 points, officially advancing to the round of 16, no matter what the result in the third game. So I think that in itself, that's huge. Like, that cannot be overlooked. Obviously, I think the headline for this is Keira Walsh, which we're about to talk about, but it can't be overlooked that England were still managed to pull this out. It was a tough one. It was a rough one across the board. But yeah, let's start here. Keira Walsh. I mean, I know I have a lot to say. I know Ali has a lot to say, but we want to know from you as a coach, that moment, it's close to halftime. England were able to make it through to halftime. Yeah. How do you handle that mentally, emotionally at halftime? Can you maybe give us a peek into what you think a head coach in Sarina might be saying in that locker room?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did hear what Sarina said after the game, which again, I think Sarina deserves a hell of a lot of credit for just the way she conducts herself, her professionalism. She's very impressive in these moments. And she said, look, let's wait and see. She doesn't want to be drawn on what the injury is. I know firsthand they have the best medical staff because the doctor is the same doctor there now that was there before. And I know they're in great hands, and Sarina alluded to that. But she just wants to wait and see and see the damage. And I think, ultimately, if you look at how the game panned out, Keira Walsh was probably the central focus for the game in terms of, I mean, she always is in terms of like the heartbeat of the team. But the way that Denmark set up to kind of double up on her and stop her playing, it narrowed up the entire Denmark team. And really, England's goal came from playing around that and playing wide. And it was a masterclass from Sarina and her staff, to be fair, in terms of, okay, we know they're going to try and stop Keira Walsh from playing. And Keira Walsh, in her credit, she knew that she was kind of making runs not to really get the ball a lot in that first 30 minutes. That's a win for the coaching staff there. But you'll be utterly disappointed for the kid and utterly disappointed for the group. The injuries that England have had leading up and the players that aren't here. Again, it's nice to hear Sarina talking about the 23 that are here. Our thoughts go out obviously to the whole team really, because it's gonna knock them one way or another. It's about how they recover from that now, really, as a group.
And is that kind of what you say? Yeah, go ahead, Ali. That's the same question, different way. Yeah. How do you pick them up?
Yeah, in these moments, it's, especially in tournament football, you got to remember these girls have been together now, the staff been together for a long time. It's not just when we see them on TV. It could have been, even a month leading up to the tournament, and obviously with traveling out to Australia and New Zealand, there's the acclimatization phase as well. So they might have been together every single day for the last 6-7 weeks, maybe, right? And when something like this happens, immediately, everybody comes together. And I think Keira knew. You could see from her reaction, she didn't really want the players to come over and be around her, because I think she knew what an effect it would have. And again, testament to her unbelievable character. But I'm sure the players will come together. There'll be moments, tonight where they speak, and reassure each other. The staff will be planning now of obviously how to play without her. and trying to put in place the best medical attention, obviously, to start a recovery. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, and that's why you need a high performance team of 15 to 20 different people, underneath the manager, trying to keep the train on the tracks. But it'll be interesting, because if they can get over it, and it could have two effects. It could either bring everyone together and it kicks them on, and they get out of this little funk, you might say, they're in now, or it starts to be the beginning of the end, perhaps, and we all hope it's not that,
Mm-hmm. So Viv Miedema came out and said that obviously they had been pushing for having a 26-player squad instead of the 23. Do you think that's going to have made a difference if, like in the Men's World Cup in Qatar, they had 26 players? Yeah. Is that going to make a difference in how you can manage injuries and people they could have brought? Or is
potentially? Yeah, I think there's a good argument there, because you've got to look at the load the players are under, the training they do, the pre-camp that they go into. There's a lot of distance being covered, and of course these people are experts. They know what they're doing in terms of how fast and far people need to run. But 3 more players in the training group. I've seen Man United doing it now out here. I think they've signed John O'Shea out here for a couple of weeks just to train. With the Man United team on pre-season tour on the men's side. So, that is a consideration. For me, it depends how you look at it. You might bring, with those extra 3 spots, you might bring a couple of younger players for the experience. You think about some young players who've been to a tournament, not really played, but then the next tournament they light it up. So it depends philosophically how you see it. But I'm pleased that FIFA have finally. Well, first of all, I'm pleased that they've upped the number of teams from.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, that's huge. But they've also, this is the first World Cup that we've had 5 substitutes as well. So I think that probably goes to your point, Ali. That probably helps more with the 5 substitution rule in terms of managing injuries and a whole bunch of stuff, because you're trying to play 7 games. If you play 7 games at the World Cup, you're in for winning a medal, so of whatever color. So that's the idea,
Yeah. I mean, so we talked about kind of emotionally, and you alluded to Serena. She's working hard. She's got a team working hard. She's working overtime. She might be probably the hardest working coach in this World Cup right now, just based on everything she's had to deal with that's been thrown at her last minute. I mean, starting with Leah to Millie and now Kira.
Yeah.
I feel like, obviously, this is a terrible subject. Obviously, Kira, while she is the focal point, she's arguably one of the best players in the world. That's a massive loss, but there's still a ton of talent to work with. You've got Nobbs on the bench. You saw Beth England come in off the bench. There's a lot here. So I just kind of want to have a conversation around, where do you think England should go next tactically? Do you even stay in this formation? Do you change formations? There's so many ways. I mean, you could stay in this formation, slot Stanway back to the 6. You could go a 4-4-2 and pull Lauren James into the 10. There's a lot of things. What would you do? And Ali, you start making your notes, because I want to know what you would do also.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting time for any fan of not just women's football, but we've seen the blueprint a little with Serena. She doesn't like to make many changes. She played the same team throughout the successful Euro campaign, and you have to admit that it worked. Obviously, they won the gold medal, but I think it's a really interesting time for her now, because the trajectory the team's been on, I think they only lost their first game under her maybe a couple of months ago, 6 weeks ago, and now the way the tournament has started, you can definitely hear in her comments that she's trying to push the narrative that it's all going to be all right and it's going to plan and we know what's going on. But I think under the surface, this is the first time she's been tested in terms of, we're not now blowing teams away. I mean, they're dominating possession. They've had 70% possession in both games, and the stats are remarkably similar for both games. The finishing hasn't been great. They're not quite creating those kind of A-grade chances with expected goals. And there's been some great goalkeeping as well. We'll talk about that later. But I think this is the first time that in her whole career, perhaps even with the Dutch, when they won the European Championships there, this might be the first time she's had this kind of challenge. So we're going to see how flexible, Serena Wiegman is and what her backup plans are. I know she has great people around her, and I hope she's listening to them, because it can be really tough for a head coach in this scenario. The pressure, the media, you've got a reputation to uphold, and sometimes you can not see the wood for the trees a little bit. So I hope she does have a plan B. It'll probably be personnel changes rather than system changes.
Yeah, but I was going to say, I feel like that is the classic question of, because sometimes it can feel, we've had this conversation about the U.S. women's national team about like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and that the U.S. was structured around Julie Ertz, and now you're just trying to fit somebody in that position. And would a formation change be better? you know, which way do you go? I lean towards what you said of you've got a system, you've got a style of playing that you've been drilling for years now. So you got to stick with that. In terms of personnel, I'd love to see maybe Nobbs on the field. I assume Georgia Stanway will slot back into the 6. I think that's where they'll be strongest. That's no disrespect to Laura Coombs. I just think that, especially seeing Georgia Stanway at the end of the game, the last 10, 15 minutes, she was in that 6. I thought it looked better.
Yeah. No, Stanway's a phenomenal player. She could be a 6 or an 8, and you know, her quality is undoubted. I agree with you. I think the US set the tone. You know, when you start taking players like Crystal Dunn and putting them at left back, and you know, they win the Golden Boot in the NWSL and they're playing left back for their country, and then all of a sudden we see Rachel Daly fitting in at left back, and she's won the Golden Boot in England. And you know, I mean, for me, you did ask me, and I won't sit on the fence. I would have Rachel Daly up front, Russo up front. I'd play with 2 forwards, and I'd find a way to do everything else, because I think, you know, it really is about goals. I think the England team at the moment is struggling to create really good chances and take those chances. And I don't think they're going to see a problem against China. I don't even think in the last 16 we're going to see some of the problems that I'm seeing perhaps rise to the surface. But I can almost guarantee by the time we get to the quarterfinal, it's going to be a shock, and everyone said, "Wow, where did that come from?" But the signs are there now. So, yeah, I think the team will remain quite similar. Ella Tomb's got a little bit of a different role than what she had in the Euros in this World Cup as well, which is interesting. But who knows? You know, they've got Alex Greenwood, who I was with Alex. Alex was there when I was there, and probably one of the best left foots in the world, men's or women's. She could slot into left back, and perhaps there could be some shifting around. But yeah, I think you're right. I'd like to see what Ali says, but I think you're right. I don't think there'll be structural change. But I do hope we're not just rolling slowly towards a quarterfinal exit, because you know, we're not really looking at the problems that are being papered over a minute. You know.
Yeah, I do love your idea of 2 forwards, but that also begs the question, and it's going to bring us onto it. But before we come onto it, I want to hear what you have to say, Ali. It does beg the question of, you know, I feel like it begs the Rachel Daly question. That's all I'll say to foreshadow. Ali, you go.
See, I do like Stanway at 6, but I prefer her at an 8. I like having her that much forward and the aggression and stuff like that. So I don't know, I'd try and find another 6. I don't want to have Stanway pushed back. We need her, and the link between her and Toon is magical and stuff like that. So I don't like having her pushed back. Yes, Nobsy could come in at the 8. I do like that, but yeah, no, I'd want to try and find another 6.
I don't think Toon's been performing all that well. I wouldn't mind even trying to see like Lauren James in the 10, and you can push somebody else up top. You get a Beth England or a Rachel Daly up there in that more advanced position. So I think there's so many options. Probably the right one is whatever Serena picks, but I'll be very curious to see. I do think England have been lucky to draw into the group that they've kind of drawn into, like you said, David. You know, and that's no disrespect to the other teams. It's just the way it is. They don't have to face a Netherlands. They're not in Group B where it's Ireland, Canada. I mean, that would be a disaster, right? They will be facing one of them in the next round of 16, but enough time to work things out. There's so many ways the Rachel Daly conversation. That's what we put a pin in. This is an interesting one, because I'm always I've been of the mind. I've wanted Rachel Daly up top. I really have. But I get why she landed there today, and I thought it was the right decision. I think Serena, it seems like she's tried everything to not put Rachel Daly there, but Alex Greenwood wasn't performing well on the outside. Jess Carter hasn't been having a great tournament so far, and Greenwood in the middle worked really well. Daly and Bronze being those like flanks that can run up and down and cover that entire 120 yards works really well. So while I love to see her up top, I felt like today was a convincing day for everybody to say, I think that this is her role, and I'd rather have her on the field than on the bench.
That's the point. That's the exact point. I think an England team without Rachel Daly for me is weaker. And look, if you're going to dominate the ball, if you're going to have 75% possession, you can have a striker stroke winger at left back, and they'll spend the vast majority of their half on the left wing or even up front. So if you have a left footer like Alex Greenwood who can step out and play kind of that left-sided 3 at the back role, it makes total sense to have an attacking player at fullback. You know, the actual amount of defending she's going to have to do is obviously negligible against these teams. And you're dead right again. We are seeing the talk before the World Cup was about 3 groups of teams, wasn't it? Top nations, a middle bracket, kind of your Swiss or your Jamaicans or your Swedish, and then the bottom bracket, which is basically your newer nations.
Mm-hmm.
Your Vietnams, your Panamas, your Haitis, and England haven't really come up against those top nations at this point. So a lot of that is yet to be tested, but. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's an abundance of talent. I think any team you pick, there's no. The England team now is as good as any team. The players, the depth, it's as good as any team. And I think more importantly, in 2023, it's great to hear so many of them talking about being winners and expecting to win and not having the pressure of winning. What we had to do during the time we were there, England went from, I think, ranked 22nd to second in the world during that period, kind of 2014 to 2018, 19. And we had a lot of firsts about, first time we beat the USA, first time we beat France or drawn against France or beat Germany. And once those milestones are out the way, I think you can change a mindset. And it's great. The Keira Walshes and the Georgia Stanways of this world would have been watching those games thinking, get me on the pitch and let me have a go. And it's great that we're seeing them actually on the field doing that now. So abundance of talent, can't really go wrong. The one we haven't talked about, who I love, and I think is just the most exciting player ever, is Chloe Kelly. Chloe Kelly must be inspiring young girls and boys all around the world. I don't know that there's a more front-footed, tenacious, mercurial talent than Chloe Kelly. And if I was in that dressing room, I'd be saying to Chloe Kelly, listen, your job is to get people to go from the back of their seat to the front of their seat. Don't worry about anything else. Just get them on the edge of their seat and the rest will take care of itself,
I couldn't agree more. I feel like we saw. I think the first play after Keira Walsh went down was Chloe Kelly going in so hard down that sideline. I think she got a foul called on her, and that's what they needed in that moment. That was the perfect thing to kind of put everybody back on that front foot.
So there were some positives to the game apart from what happened with Walsh, and we have to talk about that goal. We have to talk about that Lauren James goal because that was up there for me for goal of the tournament. Like. Up there with McCabe. We talked about McCabe in the last episode, but it was up there with McCabe's. Yeah. So what does Lauren James bring to this squad? Because we were talking about her as being a super sub, but having her start, what does a player like Lauren James bring to this England lineup?
Well, I think we all love this game because it goes in cycles. So one minute you think you got your finger on the pulse, you know exactly what it takes to win, and then all of a sudden, the coaching gets better, the domestic leagues get better. The investment into women's sport and domestic level in the major countries now is at such a level that, the training grounds are better, people are aligned with their professional clubs. And that's a long-winded way of saying what you end up with after all that is ticked off is mercurial talents like Lauren James. So once everybody's at parity in terms of, their system and how they set up and the nutrition they have and the training they do, it allows players like Lauren James to kind of grow in the midst of that and do something that nobody expects. And look, I think there's so much still to come from her. I think a lot of the times I see Lauren James get on the ball and she'll take a couple of touches and stop and stand and just drop it off. And I think that's just her signaling to the world that I'm almost ready and I'm on this journey. And one day I'm going to really go through the gears and I'm going to be the best player in the world, right? Emma Hayes has to take an unbelievable amount of credit for the work she's done with Lauren James.
Yes. Oh my God, yeah.
I was back in Britain last year. I think it was November. I was at a Champions League game at Kings Meadow watching Real Madrid and Chelsea. And Lauren James was a substitute, came on with 15 minutes to go, barely touched the ball. Just another one of those performances where people were still questioning back before Christmas, like, is she the real deal? She'd left United, like, is she going to come through? And we don't know personally. I'm sure she's extremely dedicated. I'm sure she's on this journey. But she's had people around her who have allowed her to find her own feet and have this kind of step back to her own authenticity. And the next day at the training ground, I was watching the young Chelsea teams train at Cobham. And the players who hadn't played in the Champions League the night before were playing a practice match against some local boys team, like under 16s, under 17s, whatever it was. And Lauren James just lit it up. She scored exactly the same goal that night on the AstroTurf, that's me showing my age, on the 3G pitch at Cobham that she did.
I don't know what 3G is. I still call it AstroTurf.
It's probably 4 or 5G now. That's all I am. But she scored exactly the same goal, and I couldn't believe that I was watching it this morning. It was exactly the same goal. And a lot of coaches would have said that she doesn't work hard or she doesn't do this, doesn't do that, and they wouldn't have given her the time to develop. But I think what excited me today is not just the goal, which was the goal of the tournament, obviously, so far, but there's a great example in the game where she loses the ball, gets tackled, runs back 6 or 7 yards, wins it back, and then starts again. She wasn't doing that 2 years ago. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why she is coming to the fore, and she's going to be super exciting going forward. I hope Serena sticks with her for the remainder of the tournament, because there's always one player who comes through with momentum and rips it up, and she does. She throws the rule book out the window, and she's capable of anything. So that's exciting to watch.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you just said, and going to Chelsea was the smartest move Lauren James could have made. It was the smartest move Millie Bright could have made. I think we've seen what Emma Hayes can do in developing talent. You mentioned earlier in this conversation that England, you kind of mentioned like the funk they're in now. It's funny because we all know that they were in a funk, but the beginning of this game, it seemed to me that they had really snapped out of it. And maybe it was just the Lauren James goal, but I don't think it was. They were not predictable. They were attacking, and it felt like there was a flow, there was a looseness, there was a creativity to how they were playing that was not there before. And if obviously everything hadn't changed when Keira Walsh went down, I think that we would have seen across the board a different England. And I think we would have seen many more goals, and it wouldn't have been the same type of game, the same type of 1-0. Mary Earps keeps us in it. Us, I said us. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Oh, we got her, Ali. She's coming over.
Never. Oh man, I lost my train of thought. I guess I just want to talk about what changed, other than obviously Lauren James is a massive part of it, and she lit a fire when she was on that pitch. But what was the difference between that last game and this one?
It's an important point. I honestly think it was a win for the coaches, the England coaches this time. I think the Danish team, they probably worked so hard on stopping Keira. What it looked like to me was they worked so hard on retreating, giving the ball to England in their own half and just stopping Keira Walsh from playing, that it actually allowed Lucy Bronze and Rachel Daly to get so high up the field. And when Bronzy's in that mindset and getting crosses in the box and just, she's unstoppable. So I think what happened is the first 30 minutes, you'd probably be happy if you were the Danish team to okay, this is going to plan. We're stopping and playing where we want them to play. But actually, they began to hurt us in other areas now. And I don't think the Danes could really react to that in the first 30 minutes. But after the injury, I think we started to see a couple of little salvos, little counterattacks from the Danish that really, Pernilla Hard had a few more touches, and they started to get a little bit of confidence. You don't have to have the ball in soccer, do you, to have confidence? You can just think, oh, okay, we nearly got one there. Let's keep going. And I think really what you saw in the next 60 minutes of the match was the Danes just kind of getting a bit more confident in terms of the fact that they were still in the game. And the longer it goes at 1-0, the more you're going to think, even though we haven't got much of the ball, we've got a chance. So, there's really interesting phases within the games, that fans kind of really enjoy it when you're on top and you got so much of the ball, but the players will be there thinking, okay, you can have some of the ball, but, we're still in with a shout here. So there's kind of a chess match going on within a chess match, if you like.
Absolutely. If I'm the Danish, I'm disappointed. I don't mean this in any type of, this might sound like an aggressive way, but this is competitive soccer. And if I'm the Danish and I see Keira Walsh go down, I'm out for blood. That's the moment I think we're going to go score in these next 5 minutes before halftime, and we're going to bury them right now. And they'll be disappointed to not have done that.
I think you're right. I think we saw that against Haiti as well. And this is where I am concerned is, I forget the goalie's name, but it was a phenomenal Haiti should have gone 1-0 up after around 16 minutes against England. People forget. And they should have also equalised with 10 minutes to go.
But that Mary Earps kick save, that was all Mary Earps.
Yeah, Mary Earps' friendship with David De Gea has paid off in a big way for England there, hasn't it? But I think that's what happened in the game. I think you're right. I think the Danish grew and grew and grew, and even though they knew they weren't going to dominate the ball, they basically were in with a shout. And the longer that goes on, the better.
So yeah, we do want to talk about the Danes because they will be disappointed with that. I think the big thing for me is, do you see they have any other attacking threat apart from Pernille Harder? Because every attack was going via her. It was all about pushing her forward.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, not really. I know. Is it Cole? I think the attacking midfielder Cole. Yeah. I think she definitely, when she's involved, she can definitely play those passes and really connect. No one really got together with Harder, and she starved a little bit of service. And I don't really see another world-class player on the wings there for them, which could kind of get in and around her and help her. And, if you're going to play that game where you're sitting off and counter-attacking, you maybe only need 3 players to combine to actually, get into the opposition box at times. But it's a tough way to play. With that, you almost have to score when you get the one chance. You can't hit the post. You can't have a save. And like you said, if those, one width of a ball the other way, and the Danes are coming away saying it was a great plan and it worked, and who's to say it wasn't a good plan? It just didn't come off on the day. So, yeah, I don't think Denmark are in the top tier of nations. I think they've got some work to do. They've obviously got a couple of international world stars, Pernilla Harder being the one. But I think they're galvanized. I've seen them kicking the ball off the line in the first game, and they're a team that's together, and I think they're tough to beat. And I think they probably deserve the draw, maybe at times you would say, but like you said, it's competitive elite soccer, and that's it. Move on, 1-0, all on to the next game, and sometimes it can be tough, but yeah, when you haven't got a wealth of wonderful players, when you haven't got a starting 11 that could get in the opposition's team, then you'll be struggling. And I think if you look at the Danish team, I'm not sure many of them would get in the England side.
I've got nothing else. I mean, I feel like in terms of Mary Earps, okay, I was just saying in terms of Mary Earps, we were probably right for our selection for Golden Glove.
Yeah. But
Allie, what do you got?
I'm going to put you on the spot, David. Who is progressing from the group? Who? Because all of them can do it. But all of them can do it. That's the thing with the game that happened with China Haiti. It's all in everybody's destiny. They can do it.
Well, A and B are too close to call, aren't they? I think in the next 48 hours we're going to see exactly. There's going to be some really important results there. Spain and Japan look like they're through for me in Group C. I think. Obviously, England now, I think mathematically there might be a scenario where they could still go out, but it's
I don't think so, because they've got head-to-heads.
Oh, with a head-to-head, perhaps, if the goal difference is the same, So that's you're probably right there. That means they're completely through. So I think Brazil, France, and Jamaica, obviously we're all going to support. We got 2 new fans of Jamaica today. Now I've recruited. So
We've always been.
That's going to be amazing.
Who goes 1-2 in that group? You think France goes through, or do you think that Jamaica can squeeze it?
I can't see past Brazil. I honestly, I watching Brazil and just growing up when I did in the 90s and 2000s, watching the Brazilian teams on the men's side, like it just feels to me at the moment like they are the most intertwined with their own soccer culture, and they are just there to perhaps go all the way. And the players they have, and the obviously in Pia they have an unbelievable coach with unbelievable experience as well. So I think Brazil for me are my tip for the tournament, and they're going to win the group. But I think Jamaica are going to get that second spot. And
okay, we're on board with you on Brazil. We've been talking Brazil up since the 2019 World Cup. We've just watched their progression so much. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire though. Who goes second in England's group?
Oh, I mean. It's difficult. I think who knows what will happen here against China? I mean, maybe there'll be a couple of changes. That's what you can do when you get to the third group game and you've already qualified. It's certainly an opportunity to rest a couple. Maybe give somebody a game who you might not use in the latter stages, not just for the sake of giving them a game, but in terms of managing everybody's minutes. So depending on what team comes out, England, China. It could be really interesting to see that result because obviously what it will do. But I don't see Haiti beating Denmark. So I think it'll come down to the England-China game, and whoever does better out of those two result-wise will go through. But England-China, I would have thought in that order. There is a scenario where we could see an England-USA final, isn't it?
Yeah, the only way those two will meet is if they both make it to the final.
Yeah, and I think that would be a phenomenal game to watch. So,
in which case, Allie's going to fly just for one day to Sydney, and we're going to do it big.
I would love to see you. I'd love to watch you two doing co-commentary on that game. So maybe we've got to do that. I was
going to say we've already got a bet going on about if that happens. If England lose, I have to wear an Alex Morgan t-shirt, and what did we decide for you, Sarah? The
thing is, I think what we decide is that I've got way more love for England than you have for the US.
Yeah.
But, all right. I think all the English are going to be mad at me for somehow through the grapevine transitioning this English conversation to talking about the US. So Allie, please take this away from me.
Yeah. Okay. So that is it. That is everything from the Women's Soccer Show on this England-Denmark special. Thank you so much, David, for coming on. Where can people find you if you want people to find you? You know.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, I would, the website, www.theproplayer.com. Just go on there and have a little search around. You'll see a bunch of recommendations and stuff that we do. And like I said, if we can help, any young aspiring players or even professional players, we don't do any marketing. We don't do any advertising. It's all, everything we've done has been player to player referral. So that's the website. Goughy23 on Twitter. And like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I think you guys are doing a wonderful job. And more and more outlets like this that we see and are supported, I think is one of the reasons why the women's game is getting where it is now, because people went out off their own back, using their own resources when they care this much and do a great job like you guys do. So I'm more than pleased to be involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being on. This was an absolute blast. And if England make it further, let's say if they make it further into the knockouts, and just pass the round of 16 into the quarters, you got to come back on.
Well, not only that, in 4 years' time, we're going to have to come back because Wales are going to be there as well. So
yes,
we're going to have to make sure it's in the diary, right?
Based on the performance against the US, I would not be surprised if that happened.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.